In this tutorial, we're now going to talk about how we set up our model for unfolding. And there are two approaches that are taken to unfolding your models. And I'm going to describe the one briefly, and then I'm going to get into the more consistent and popular workflow for unfolding, and we're going to talk about that in detail. Once you've defined your paper size, one of the things that you can do over here is that you can do an auto unfold. And what that's going to do is that basically going to take your model, it's going to auto slice it up and create a flat sheet development of your model. Now once you do that, one of the things that comes up is the assembled size of your model. And this is if you wanted to just make it out of this single sheet. It takes the model and takes your sheet size and unfolds a development that will relate to that sheet size. But one of the things that you can do is that you can come up to your 2D menu and you can change the scale and you can set the scale. So in this case, I want my model to be approximately 3 feet. So I look at my widest dimension, and that's 204 millimeters. I know that 3 feet is approximately 900 millimeters, and I'm going to set that there. I'm going to click OK, and this shows the development of that over a series of sheets. And what each one of these represents, represents is your sheet of paper. And what you could do is to begin to go through and cut this up and lay it out so that it fits on these sheets. And it takes a little time, but often these types of developments have folded edge issues and are sometimes overlapping, and you have to carefully figure out, like here we have overlapping edges here, you have to figure out by cutting parts and rejoining them how they might relate to one another. And it's not a method that I use. It's often used when you're doing like faces and the like, where you want to have a minimum number of cuts and you want to fold it together like that. But that's not the methodology that we're going to use for this model, okay, that we do. But it is an approach that is worthy of consideration. Perhaps in a later video I'll talk to you about how you might do something like a face or something like that, where this approach is a lot more valid. But we're gonna describe a different way and a different method for chopping up and organizing your model in Pepakura for this video tutorial. Okay, now we're back to our model. And here we have our model, and some of the things that you want to think about when you're doing your model. In this case, what I would like to do is to organize this model in a way that makes some sense for construction. And luckily it's made in edge loops, and you have to think about how you're going to get your hand in and out to sort of like build this model. And my approach to doing it is that I sort of see it as 3 different sections. I see this as one arm, I see this as another arm, and I see this piece through the center as, we'll call it a bridge. And that's sort of like the way that the model is organized. And what you can do is you can bring this menu down here, and this is your slicing menu. And basically you have several modes that you can work in. This is sort of like your pick single edge, and this tool right here picks like a path edge. And this is your slice tool. You use that to specify your open edges. And this is used to sort of split edges to make smooth. But you're going to basically use these 3 tools, and they can also be found underneath your edge selecting menu, where you can select a single edge or shortest path between 2 points. The model. So we're going to get over here and we're going to specify our open edges. and we're going to use like a single edge. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click on each one of these edges. And I want you to note how they turn orange when they're selected, and that sort of signifies an open edge. And I'm using a sort of looping strategy to do this. And I'm going to come over here and I can double click on an edge like that, and notice how it selects an edge loop. So if your model is made with edge loops, that's really convenient. Okay, and I can come over here, I'm going to select this so that this part, this edge loop, comes off as a loop. And I'm going to do the same over here, double click that, and I have my edges there, created a loop there, and I'm going to cut that there, and I'm going to cut that there, and that basically breaks my model up into those three parts, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Now, as I'm working on my model and I'm in sort of like edit mode here, I'm going to just enlarge this window because I don't really need to see the layout while I'm doing this. And this gives me just more space where I can focus on my editing. And it just helps me. I find it useful to do this, to have this larger. Now, one of the other ways that you can edit is that you can do path between points. So I click on a point here, I click on a point there, point here, point there, and it selects an edge. I click on, and you notice that it went all the way around there like that. And I click on a point here, click on a point there, and it does that also. Okay, I'm going to click on a point here, click on a point there, and you'll note that it draws a path between those 2 points. And here I can close that edge loop off by clicking on a point here and clicking on a point there. And it also did that. I can see that edge right there. Let me come over to the side here, click there, and click here, and click there. But since most of these are edge loops, a better approach would be to just double click on each one of the edges like that, double click on the edges like that, double click on the edges, get the one on top, and that bridge is done. And then I can come around here and double click that edge, double click that edge, double click that edge, double click that edge, and so on. And you can see that when you model using edge loops, the slicing work can go very quickly. And I also note that because these are all basic edge loop ribbons, that I'll be able to start here and get my hands all the way through here as I build it back and unfold it, and that the model itself will represent itself as a series of edge loop. And this completes the tutorial section that deals with slicing your models. And what we're going to do in the next tutorial, we're going to talk about how we unfold this model, and also how we begin to organize it and lay it out on our sheets.